some very popular brands were as good as nothing, what we call a control. And some turmeric that we got from the Indian store worked really well. Even though you test for that one bioactive, there are other things present in it that then affects. These are natural ingredients. You cannot isolate them and make them synthetic or make them in the lab, right? Dependent on where your plant was grown and the conditions it was grown in, it could have amounts of those other entourage molecules. And so it affects the efficacy of that ingredient. We are really designed for entrepreneurship because failure is just part of our everyday life, right? Our experiments fail every day, our grants get rejected every day.
The supplement industry in the US is a $60 billion a year industry, and most of these products have never been tested on a single living cell. Leena Pradhan-Nabzdyk is the co-founder and CEO of Canomiks, a Minnesota-based company using genomics and AI to validate the biological efficiency of dietary supplements and botanical ingredients. She holds a PhD in pharmacology from Tulane, an MBA from MIT Sloan, and has been a faculty in Harvard Medical School since 2005. But here's what most people miss with supplements. The industry relies on chemical testing, confirming the right compound is in the bottle at the right dose. But 2 batches of the same turmeric extract sourced from different regions can trigger completely different biological responses. Same label, different biology. In this episode, we talk about what it means to move from chemical quality control to biological control, how Canomiks went from Harvard research to partnerships with companies like Ocean Spray, and why Leena built a consumer platform to score supplements on actual science, not marketing claims. Let's get into it. Welcome to Stories in Life Sciences podcast today. I'm excited to learn more about Canomiks and what you all got going on there. Just to get started, where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling in from Rochester, Minnesota.
Just to get started, I guess the best place I always like to go is kind of some of your background and your story, and how you got to where you are and Canomiks, and just a little bit more about you.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So again, I'm Leena Pradhan-Nabzdyk. I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of Canomiks, and Canomiks is based in Rochester, Minnesota, and in Massachusetts, which is where we formed Canomiks. And as a background, my PhD is in pharmacology. I got my PhD from Tulane University many years ago. And then I moved to Boston for my first job at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center and as faculty member at Harvard Medical School. And I started working on how diabetes affects wound healing and how it affects cardiovascular system. And through my job there, I met my supervisor, Dr. Frank Logerfo, who is a world-renowned vascular surgeon. And through my academic work, I met Dr. Manoj Bhasin, who is now a world-renowned genomics expert. We worked for many years together on our academic endeavors, like I said, cardiovascular, wound healing, diabetes complications. One of the exciting projects that I worked on was developing an animal model for understanding diabetic wound healing and then testing new therapies for the treatment. And that's where I started getting interested in how to bring what we do in the lab, what we research in the lab, to the clinic or to the outside world. And I started collaborating with a lot of startup companies. And I really enjoyed that work to really see what we study at the molecular level in the lab and then understand the pathology and then come up with treatments and then how we can test those treatments and then bring it to the patients. And while I was doing that, I started thinking about joining industry, either biotech or pharma. I didn't have any experience in industry. I didn't have any experience in business. So at some point, I decided to get an MBA from MIT. And so I got my MBA. And as I was finishing that, Manoj and Frank, who had been now my collaborators for more than 10 years, 15 years, Manoj actually came up with the idea of Canomiks and how we can bring our expertise, our individual expertise, my expertise in pharmacology, his expertise in genomics, bioinformatics, and Frank's clinical expertise to the nutraceutical, dietary supplement, natural product industry. And that was the genesis of Canomiks. The 3 of us who already knew each other for many years, had worked together for many years and brought different skill sets, decided to form Canomiks. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. Well, so what was that moment like? Okay, these are what we're all good in. Like, here's what we're going to work on.
Of course, there's always a story behind
Yeah.
everything, and especially with startups. So, the original idea came about because Manoj was doing a lot of work in alternative medicine and understanding how, for example, meditation and yoga and relaxation techniques affect clinical outcomes. But his goal was to really understand how does it affect at this our bodies at the cellular and the molecular level. And as he was publishing those studies and getting more and more involved, he thought about how could we use those methods of genomics, bioinformatics and understanding molecular mechanisms in any of the other alternative medicine realms. And both him and I grew up in India, and when you grow up in India, you use Ayurveda in your day-to-day life. Your mom or your grandmom is going to make you drink that turmeric milk when you have sore throat, which I have right now. If you have a cut, you put turmeric on it. If you have stomach ailment, you're forced to drink ginger tea. So we both grew up with that sort of background. He, of course, in different parts of India. And so for him to then naturally start thinking about, can we use those same molecular mechanisms based methods for the Ayurveda? I mean, we know that these things work because our cultures have used those for centuries, and not just our culture, also traditional Chinese medicine. But we just never thought about applying modern techniques, scientific techniques to learn those systems. And so that's where we really thought about, well, we can try to do that. And was there a commercial opportunity to do that? Again, the other part of the story is our initial idea was to bring products to the market, develop dietary supplement products that we test and validate using these methods and bring them to the market. Lo and behold, we are three scientists. We didn't have much marketing backgrounds. And what we realized was that a lot of this industry, the products are brought to the market, or the companies are formed around a marketing idea or a marketing trend.
Yeah.
And then science may or may not get used in the development. And our backgrounds were very scientific. So we thought, instead of us bringing products to the market, if we really want to have an impact, maybe we can start providing these services to other companies. And again, there is a story behind that. As I was pitching our ideas about, how we can use these methods, some of the big companies in the space started approaching us saying that we don't care about the products that you may bring to the market. We may or may not license them, but we really love the methods that you're using, and can you help us use those methods? And so that was sort of the idea, and that was the aha moment for us, because now instead of us going and advertising our services, companies were already coming to us. And so we settled on that idea that, okay, instead of us bringing products to the market, maybe we can help other companies who are already doing this. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just help them, develop products in a scientific method. Now you have the full story behind
No,
Canomics.
I love hearing that the pivot or the shift essentially too when you found out, okay, maybe maybe we don't want to make our own. This might be
Yeah.
a different way to go. Was he testing how the cellular reaction to some of these medicines, like turmeric specifically, for example, already in the lab? Like, was that something that was? Because I know you mentioned meditation, yoga, different. When did that
Yeah.
transition into looking at specific compounds and like how?
Yes, that's a great question. So Manoj wasn't doing any of that. That was still just an idea. So everything that we started testing was under the banner of Canomiks. But what we did initially, even before we started testing, was, again, Manoj's background is in big data and bioinformatics. We started curating databases of ingredients that are used in these products and understanding from published studies, from what you have PubMed or any clinical trial studies that are either published or in any kind of repositories, curating databases and understanding how do these ingredients, let's say turmeric or green tea or ashwagandha is a popular one these days,
Yeah.
how do they affect human genes and thereby human wellness? So initially we were doing a lot of this in silico, but then again, just being naive in this industry, not understanding. I'll give you an example. So if you were to, get ibuprofen or, like I have sore throat right now, what do I take? Robitussin. Any of those generic versions of those medicines, you don't think twice if I'm buying a CVS brand or a Target brand or the branded form of that drug, right? Even if it's over the counter, because it's a small molecule most likely, and it doesn't change from one company to the other. What happens in this industry is that it really depends on the source where you get these ingredients, and they can change from batch to batch, especially the botanical ingredients, what we call the herbal ingredients, where the plant is grown, what strain of the crop was used, how it was grown, what were the climate conditions, what were the soil conditions. And it really affects the bioactives. So when we were curating these databases, we just put everything that was turmeric under one sort of variable, right? Then we realized, well, turmeric is different from turmeric extract, and turmeric extract 50% is different than 98%. And then even within 98%, we don't know if it was grown in which part of India, or was it even grown in India. And so then it started getting really complicated. So we were like, how do companies even come up with what source to use? How does one product that you buy from one company versus the other? I mean, it is so complex, this botanical natural industry, and rightfully so, because these are not drugs. They are not supposed to function like drugs. And so you can't really isolate that one small molecule from it. Then it becomes a drug. So where do you even get started? So that was kind of interesting for us to even start. So before, like your question was, were we already testing, or was Manoj already testing these? So initial work was, what we did was just in silico. And then we realized, unless we really start testing them in the lab, it's not going to make any sense.
Wow. Yeah. There's so many variables there. That's we don't even think about, like what the climate was from year to year in
Exactly.
a place, on whether something is going to have an impact. That's what
Correct.
is wild to me, is I know the testing as it comes in, but you're testing it and how the actual cell is reacting once it's going in.
Correct.
That's wow. I mean, what has surprised you in that? I mean, in the testing?
An early study that we did, we just took turmeric from different sources. That time we were based in Boston. Just went to store. We went to an Indian store and got turmeric, because a lot of these herbal natural ingredients are part of our culinary palette in India. So we use cumin, we use turmeric, we use garlic, we use ginger in our everyday cooking. And so we got some turmeric from different brands that we just bought online or from stores, just like raw turmeric from an Indian store, and we looked at how a cell would react to it. And when I say a cell would react to it, what we do, and this is the basis of everything that we do at Canomiks, is to really understand how does a given ingredient, or if you're mixing more than one ingredient, affect human gene expression changes. And then we can extrapolate those changes, because we know what those changes then end up becoming, like how does it manifest in a body. And so what are the end results of a certain group of genes that get what we call upregulated or downregulated.
Is that where the AI comes in? Is you're comparing that to models that you already have created of how it should react to that?
So we have done that. And now we are using AI for a completely new solution that we are developing, for which we have more than $1 million grant from the National Science Foundation. I'll come to that in a minute. That's where we are heavily using AI. But in the initial studies, we just compared how gene expression was changed from one source of turmeric to the other. And there were a lot of changes. And believe it or not, some, and I cannot name those brands, but some very popular brands, as good as nothing, what we call a control. And some turmeric that we got from the Indian store or from India, if I remember, worked really well. And when I say really well, we also had some standards that are used in some of the other types of testing, where they do the chemical analysis type of testing, and we compared that as like a positive control, like that's how truly a turmeric ingredient should work in a cell. And so that was quite surprising.
How did you establish a baseline of like what?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right now in the industry, the type of tests that are available, these are chemical analytical tests that are available. And a lot of those are required by the FDA to make sure when you buy a bottle and it says turmeric XYZ amount, what it should have in is the exact amount of turmeric that's mentioned on the label. And to make sure that that's the case, right now there are chemical tests. It's called HPLC, chromatography based test, or LCMS. Okay, this says turmeric and the active molecule in turmeric is what you call curcumin. It says 90% curcumin. So it should have that result for the analytical testing. So the chemical entity should be in there. What we found out, and going back to your earlier question, what were we surprised about? Even when you had those standards, when we controlled for the standards, that all those sources that we tested, we made sure they had the equal amount of curcumin in it. Even then there were differences. And what we realized is that these botanical ingredients, they are not isolated one small molecule, right? They come with other smaller molecules, what we call the entourage molecules. So you have that main bioactive, let's say in turmeric, called curcumin or curcuminoids, and then there are other small varieties or versions of them that affect that molecule and its activity. So even though you test for that one bioactive, there are other things present in it that then affects. Because again, these are natural ingredients. You cannot isolate them and make them synthetic or make them in the lab, right? So dependent on where your plant was grown and the conditions it was grown in, it could have different amounts of those other entourage molecules. And so it affects the efficacy of that ingredient.
Wow. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, it's not as simple. It has an entire ecosystem in it. It's just like humans.
Exactly.
It makes sense.
Exactly.
It's a plant. You can't just measure that one aspect of it and have that be what defines the entirety of it. Like that makes sense. And then, you were talking a little bit about that grant and the AI aspect.
So then coming back to that problem of batch to batch variation, right? And now even though we have looked at the chemical standard, the chemical analytical standard, we have still seen the differences in the effect, and we showed that, and we wrote a grant. We actually wrote a couple of times. First we wrote to the NIH. They didn't like the idea because they're very focused on drug type of grants. We sent the grant to National Science Foundation, and they immediately understood the problem that we were trying to solve. So even if you have something that says it's 25% active molecule for turmeric or for ashwagandha, it doesn't really mean it's going to have the same effect across. And this is something that I always talk about. Let customers speak to you. This problem was, it didn't like all of a sudden, something went in our brains and we're like, oh, this is a great problem to solve. In fact, it was one of our customers who told us that, well, we just had a big production failure. It's a multi-billion-dollar company, and they changed their source of green tea. It was from the same distributor or supplier that they were buying, but that supplier changed the farm and how that farm processed the leaves, and that changed their downstream production of that ingredient, and thereby a lot of problems that they faced in their product. Now, this company comes to us and says that, is there any way you can standardize those, help us make sure that from one source or from one batch to the other, we don't have the same problem. And then we talked to some other companies, and a couple of big nutrition companies don't even want to use botanical ingredients because of this problem and huge liability issues and compliance issues. And so we came up with this idea of how about we standardize these ingredients for their biological effect. So now you have a standard for the analytical. Now can we then standardize it for the biological effect? So your turmeric from one year to the other, maybe it is 25% still curcumin in it. Maybe it is 30% curcumin. But what ultimately a consumer is looking for is that effect, right? So it doesn't matter if there is slight variation in the analytical aspects of it. Maybe it's 30% versus 25%, but as long as it has the same effect, it's all good, right? And so we are creating this whole new technology, what we have called it B2B, biological batch-to-batch testing. And at the back end, we use AI and we use human cells that are commercially available, and we standardize the ingredients for their effect. Again, the question that we ask is, how does a given ingredient affect gene expression changes? And then we create a biomarker panel for each of these different types of ingredients. And how do we create that baseline? So what we are doing is we are piggybacking on those standards that are created already for the analytical testing. So we use the same material that is used for the analytical standards in our testing. And then we say, okay, if you have good quality turmeric, these are the 100 genes it should affect. If you have a good quality ashwagandha, these are the 100 or 150 genes it should affect. So it's like what you see in cancer biology, right? These are the 5 genes. If you have this type of cancer in your outcome, then these are the 5 genes probably are affected. So it's very similar to that. But our secret sauce is also in the protocols that we have developed to come to that, and also the systems that we use. So it's not just, okay, we are creating some biomarkers, because again, this is not drug pharma industry where they have millions of dollars to spend. So we have to be cost conscious, what our customers can afford to pay. And so we had to come up with very smart ways of cutting down those costs in our sequencing methods and all of that. We are in year 2 of that development. We have turmeric that we used as sort of like our prototype. NSF loved the data that we had, so then they gave us additional $1 million to now really establish this platform. So we are creating standards for also elderberry, which is a ingredient that became quite popular during COVID, but also has a lot of fraud in its supply chain. And then the other one is cranberry, where we are working with Ocean Spray. We all know Ocean Spray. Yeah. We had done another big study with them, and that's all public knowledge because they put out a press release for that work that we had done. So now we are establishing standards for cranberry, elderberry, and then we'll keep adding more ingredients to this platform.
It's exciting as a consumer. Do you feel like it'll ever get to a way where we could look at how our own get personalized with it, to where you look at our own gene expression, how it would react to a certain?
Yes, that we had also come up with algorithms to start doing that, but then that becomes in this gray zone of, then are you a diagnostic company and now are you prescribing? So we are not going that route right now because of regulatory, what 23andMe had to face. FDA started telling them, oh, now you are a medical diagnostic company if you're trying to tell people this is what to use, what not to use.
That makes sense.
So, until that regulatory zone is cleared up, but we are willing to collaborate with companies who have that part taken care of, and then we can start. We can give them combinations of ingredients that we can mix for a particular person based on their gene expression profile.
Wow. Yeah, that's exciting. That makes me excited. I'm like, can I send you some of my we do like a one-off test where I can just say, does this turmeric work on me?
Yeah. No, exactly. That's the idea. But I think the consumer is getting savvier, but I think there is still a lot of consumer education that needs to happen. Not just consumer, but also provider education. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what made me excited reading this too. It's so hard. I mean, people go into a store and grab with a lot of assumptions in terms of that it's being tested or what's being tested. And I don't think a lot of people understand. I saw that you had shown that there could be like a mark of, or a seal of approval essentially, that your company could have on something at some point. Or just, you want to speak more to that, or what that might look like?
Yeah. There are 2 different things that we are working on for the consumer. Our early idea was to bring our own products to the market. That's still shelved, that we are not doing that. But we still want to help directly have conversation with the consumer. Yeah. So 2 things that we are going to do. So if somebody tests either their ingredient or their product with us, then we can provide them with CanTrust by Canomiks, or especially for the bio B2B, where we know that the ingredients are tested through our system, but also for the efficacy studies where we help with the R&D development of a product. We can say this product underwent R&D development through our CanTrust by Canomiks. So that's our one seal of approval. The other one, and this is our new latest sort of solution for the consumers, where we directly are interfacing with the consumers, and we are really excited about it. It's called whattotrust.com, and everybody should look it up. Right now we have put down the sign up wall, so anybody can look at the site without even signing up. But if you want more information from us, please sign up, so that way we keep our consumers informed about what we do. So what whattotrust.com does is evaluate products that are on the market based on the science that was used behind their development. And this is not lab-based test. We look at the publicly available information about a product,
Okay.
Let's say you're taking magnesium for sleep, or ashwagandha for mental health, or shatavari for menopause, any of those products. We check out the product site, the website. We look for the different types of analytical tests. Like I mentioned, the chemical analytical test is required by the FDA. So we score the product on whether those tests were done or not. Then we do a deep dive into that particular product to see if there was any science that was done behind its development. It doesn't have to be with us, it could be with anyone. Both preclinical, which is what we at Canomiks do, looking at how a given product or an ingredient affects cells, or even sometimes in animal studies. We don't do animal studies, but if a product has undergone what we call the preclinical testing, and then if a product has undergone clinical testing. And so we score the products on all those different parameters, and then there is a final score. All of this is explained on whattotrust.com, and the scores go from 1 to 10, 10 being the best. What we want is for consumers to have the best scientifically and clinically tested products. This whole idea, talk about, entrepreneurship and pivots and whatnot, came about because our customers who do all our use our lab-based testing and product development and all of those solutions, always come back saying, how can we help convert this messaging, that all this scientific jargon data that you gave us, into something that a consumer can understand for consumer education? How can we convey that? And not only that, there are a lot of companies who don't do science but have fancy packaging or billboards, and they spend a lot of marketing dollars.
Influencers.
And influencers, all of that, right? And how do we compete with that? And so we said, you know what, let's look at the products that are out there, and we can not only see how companies are using those languages, the marketing languages and messages, and how can we then help our customers, apply some of those, but then convert that scientific jargon into those messages. And so we started we are good at creating databases. So we started creating another database of who are these companies. Maybe we should start targeting them for our lab services. And then
they probably don't want them.
It was very difficult to find that information. Like, okay, now I'm in this industry. I've been doing this for some years. I'm a scientist, and it's so hard for me to find that information. Think about a regular consumer. How are they going to find that information? And so then we decided maybe we should start scoring these. And then initially we were just scoring them for our own sake so that we can start targeting those companies. But then I was like, there is a way we can use this information to then help the consumer make informed decisions about their buying decisions. And so then we started creating this, and we were like, we want to keep this as simple as possible. We don't want to start giving advice to the consumer, start taking this, because like you said, every person is different. And unless you personalize it, unless I know what's happening in your body and I'm your provider, I don't think that's our place to tell someone or even to advise, because I think that is a conversation you should have with your provider, what to take, what not to take. But the least we can do for our consumers is at least evaluate these products based on the science. We are scientists, we can evaluate science. And so that's how we came up with What to Trust. It took its own shape and form now, and its own entity now, almost, because it's getting a lot of traffic and a lot of popularity. But we always want more people to sign up for it. It's free for consumers. We don't take any money from the companies whose products we evaluate. People ask me, how are you making money? Right now, we are not making money. Where we make money is through our lab services. So to create that inbound for our customers there. But eventually we will come up with ways to make money, because my investors are not going to like that. So the more people show up on our site, the better it is for us to understand what the consumers are looking for, maybe come up with ideas of helping other companies, decide what are consumers looking for, etc., the data that we have from the back end. But right now, all we want is to help the consumer, make informed decisions. We have a very active Instagram page as well. We put out a lot of content up there as well as to how you make those choices, what questions to ask, what are these different terms that are used in this industry. So it's quite exciting for us about what to trust.
It's exciting. Thank you for doing that. Oh, there's so much misinformation out there. People taking all these things, not just one thing, then they're taking 5 different things, not knowing where they come from. Who knows how that's affecting their body? Well, I will sign up for your site. I usually just
Thank
look
you.
at Tim Ferriss and I listen to him because I feel like he does some due diligence out there. I started with Athletic Greens with him like 12 years ago. I just trust like some of the stuff that he says, but I
Yes, so
love the
AG1 is
site.
on our site and they have
Yeah.
a lot of clinical studies. Needless to say, they have a perfect score of 10 for their product. So
Nice.
you're on the right track.
Perfect. I took it this morning, so I
Yes.
got one. I try not to take too many things. I think that's just a few. Well, that's yeah. Thank you. Yeah, again, just thank you for doing that. I think that's everybody. Yeah, before you buy things, just get on there. Do you see that shifting the industry? Like companies that are putting all that money into marketing, maybe putting some of that money into science as this comes out and this trend shifts, that consumers get more educated. I mean, that's kind of my hope is that
You
people
can pitch
stop.
for me next time. That's exactly our pitch to
Yeah.
companies is that, when you spend money on science, you don't have to worry about compliance, but that also helps you with marketing, right? So
Yeah.
you get a twofer. So you don't think about spending money on science, but think about it for
Yeah.
marketing purposes because as our consumers are getting savvy,
Which you're helping with.
and and information gets from one person to other, across geographies, across time zones very fast. People are talking about it all the time. So if you spend money on science and if you build that credibility with your consumers, it's only going to help you.
It's good to hear this. I went to a conscious capitalism conference and it just feels like aligned. It's hopeful to see things that the alignment with the economics and doing the right thing, I feel like is a trend, like a trend that I want to be supportive of. So
Absolutely. Maybe we should do, I don't know, some fundraising from consumers just to keep this going. And I have even thought about it to like spin this out and have like even maybe a nonprofit just for this purpose because again, there's so
yeah,
much misinformation and there's
so much.
so little information. And like you mentioned influencers. We just did a post or boosted a post on Instagram about, doctor formulated. What does that even mean, doctor formulated?
Yeah, did
Or
he
there are
make it?
companies,
Yeah, or she make it? Did they make it themselves? Like,
and there are some companies that are so good, like you mentioned, Athletic Greens. There are a bunch of other companies who always want to do the right thing, who are spending a lot of money on science. Then there are these, I call them misfits in the industry. I don't want to just call people, who want to not do the right thing by their consumer and make some quick money and just brings the whole industry down. That brings the whole credibility. Again, going back to where I started this conversation, both Manoj and I, we grew up in India. We know these things work, but that doesn't mean that you can just sell whatever, package something and just be, hey, start taking this because you know what, it's going to work. No, just have some data behind it, some science behind it,
yeah.
So
Just know what you're putting in your body. Yeah, appreciate you doing that testing and giving the site out there. I'm definitely going to sign up after this.
yes,
I'm
please
so
do
curious,
it.
so curious to go on it. I'm going to encourage everybody I talk to. Yeah, I just wonder if people like influencers like Dr. Huberman or different things, how you could get in with some of those people that are talking about supplements that actually care about science. And I just encourage people, hopefully push out some of those companies that aren't doing it in the right way.
Exactly. Absolutely. We have, in fact, last October, Council for Responsible Nutrition, it's a big industry organization. They had a whole panel on companies like us that are evaluating these products and also a lot of science-based panels. And so I'm seeing more and more of this happening. After COVID, there's so much focus on health and wellness. We've seen this industry grow so fast. And, if you're not doing the right thing, if you're not doing the science, maybe you'll make quick money in the first 2 years. But after that, you're going to lose here because consumers are going to hop onto the next best thing. And then you have nothing to no story to tell them that, hey, we have tested this, we're continuously testing it, this is the best product. That flashy marketing is not going to last that long. So
Yes.
follow the industry trend. There are a lot of great companies who are doing the right thing, and if you want to survive in that ecosystem, just follow science and use science. So
Perfect. Yeah, it's so good to hear. So what's next at Canomiks? What are you excited about that you all are moving into or what's next?
yeah, we are excited about our Bio B2B, of course. We are hoping that in next year and a half, we should be able to properly launch that service. we are also excited about what to trust and where it takes us.
Yeah.
Like I said, we are not making money right now, so we have to come up with some ways of doing that. But again, at the end of the day, we are three scientists. We get so excited about science. We are all three still on at our faculty jobs. I'm still part-time at Harvard Medical School. Manoj is at Emory University, and Frank is also still at Harvard. We always think about, before from our academic side, always thought about patients, but now I think in terms of consumers and healthy people who want to, manage their health and wellness. And, this is a awesome responsibility that we have taken upon ourselves, and science gets us excited. We are not here to make some quick buck. We are very successful in our other jobs, and we just want to do it right by the consumers. And Manoj and I especially are really excited to see that how our traditional cultures that where we have used these types of medicine are getting so much attention and so much interest and popularity. And, we want to see where it all takes us. But at the end of the day, it's just about doing the right thing and doing the right thing using science. That's what gets me, going every morning. And this whole grant that we got from the National Science Foundation, I have so many more ideas how we can further build that out or come up with. I'm constantly looking to troubleshooting. That's my job. As a scientist, there is no instant gratification. Like so many of our experiments fail, and then you stand up again and you redo it and tweak it, and that's how you keep going. And a lot more ideas at Canomiks. Just stay connected to us and stay connected through What to Trust, because that's where we also send our articles and newsletters from. So you'll know exactly what's going on in the industry, what we are trying to do. So
I heard someone at JPM speak to the excitement around infusing some of these old ways with new technology. And that gets me excited too, and it feels like you're speaking to that.
Yeah, we have had again, this is confidential information, so I can't say what these companies were, but we had conversations with one or two different big pharma companies where they have drugs, rightly so, for very, like cancer and autoimmune diseases, where the drugs have a lot of side effects, and they have talked about, can we use alternative medicine type of systems to complement what these drugs, these patients are taking already, because they're going to go look for them anyway. And they're doing that already. So but again, being big companies and being risk averse, they want to make sure that, they do the right R&D, and especially with Bio B2B, where we can assure that there is efficacy even before they mix those ingredients together at the ingredient level itself. So absolutely. Yeah. So no wonder you heard that at JPM. Yeah.
more alternative medicines fusing into this realm. I feel there's a lot of directions that you can go, which I'm sure keeps you going and excited. And I guess on that too, at the end is, I talked to a lot of people coming from academia and science and then going into industry and creating, like any advice that you have or big things that you learned that they were surprised you.
That's a great question. That would be another podcast for us. I did a keynote last year at University of Minnesota exactly talking about this. How do we as scientists bring our discoveries and commercialize them and bring them to the market? Again, I chose a different sort of industry where it was a little bit probably easier to bring, or see those things come to the market much faster than your traditional pharma, right? But having said that, you don't have to get an MBA, but what you have to do is start educating yourself about the marketing lingo, the business lingo, How do we get the scientists to talk to the non-scientists and get them at that table where big decisions are made? What we do, even in our small company of like 5 or 6 people, at that Monday morning meeting, everybody's there. Even if I'm talking about science, our marketing person is there. Yeah. Even if our data person is there, our marketing person is there. Just to even get used to that language. Find a solution that you want to bring to the market. Find a problem, a big problem to solve. But again, if you think about it, startup pharma companies are not that different from your lab. It's just that their goals are different. I would say, at least at the startup part of it. Once you are in a late stage, or in big pharma, that's very different. And I don't have that experience. But if you want to start a company, just go for it. network. That's the other thing, don't miss an opportunity to talk about, your idea or what you're trying to build. You never know where it's going to lead. So
Yeah, I like
my
that.
two cents.
That excites me. That was how it was at Biodesign. Like Stanford has their program. They have a clinician with an engineer with the business person. I was being the commercial person. It's
Right.
fun, yeah, to be in those rooms and talk together because I think that's where some amazing things can get commercialized and come out to the
Exactly.
market. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, merge with those people. Everybody can
Yep.
talk to each
Find those
other.
people. You have to be proactive. Opportunities are not just going to land on you. Sorry, I have bad sore
Yeah.
throat. I'm taking turmeric, by the way.
You've tested it too, I'm guessing.
I mean, I grew up with that. So, but you have to go seek out those opportunities. You have to go seek out those relationships. You have to go seek out those systems, those ecosystems, and, then just follow through.
Follow
And
through.
perseverance. Do not give up. I think as scientists, we are especially really made for this stuff because we don't know what instant gratification is as scientists, right? Like your grants, you have to write them over and over. After 4 years, finally a grant gets funded, or the experiment, you try this, you try that, you don't give up, right? So we are really designed for entrepreneurship because failure is just part of our everyday life, right? Our experiments fail every day, our grants
Yeah,
get
no big
rejected
deal.
every day. So there's no such thing as, I put this together and voila, it's going to work. So we are especially, good for that.
Oh, no, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Lena. That's great advice. Like, yeah, get out there and mingle and get your idea out of the lab and have conversations with other people and
Absolutely.
yeah, and believe in yourself. Yeah, it sounds like built for it as well with the perseverance side. And just thank you for what you're doing. Just, I mean, truly, like to make consumers more educated on what they're putting in their bodies and that all these different supplements, all these different things out there aren't the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, appreciate it. And one more time, what was the website we all need to sign up for?
Whattotrust.com.
Whattotrust.com. Do not get on there before we take anything in the future. So thanks
Yes,
so much.
please. Thank you so much. This was fun conversation.
Yeah.
And anytime I'm up for all kinds of different, I have so many ideas and we talked about just entrepreneurship itself, is especially for women and minorities. It's a whole new topic. So, but yes, I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
again.
So did I. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes.
You've been listening to Stories in Life Sciences, sponsored by MedAccess AI, where we explore people, ideas, and breakthroughs shaping the future of biotech and healthcare innovation. To learn more, visit medaccessai.org and subscribe on YouTube to watch the full conversations and new episodes as they launch. I'm Christopher Wilson. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep shaping the future, one story at a time.